Ladies and gentlemen, and the misfits who refuse to stay in their lanes, welcome to the world's Mayor Experience. I'm your host, Joshua T. Berglan. For the new listeners, let me give you the lay of the land. We do not do small talk here. We do real talk. We strip away the corporate veneer and the media spin to get to the marrow of the human experience. I stand here as a man who has battled dissociative identity disorder and who navigates the world on the autism spectrum. But today you're going to see something else. You might see me shaking. It's not just in my hands, it's in my neck, my head, and my entire body. You might hear the struggle in my speech. These are not just tremors. This is my body reacting to the world in a way most people can't imagine. I feel every frequency. Whether it is an electronic signal, human energy, or the raw power of Mother Nature herself, it surges through me in a very supernatural way. It is painful and is definitely exhausting. And it's a daily battle just to speak into the microphone. But I refuse to hide it. These are not weaknesses. These are my credentials. Because when you have been broken by the system, and when you feel the weight of the world literally vibrating in your bones, you learn to build something better. We talk a lot on this show about shadow prisons, the cages society puts us in. But I don't just talk about breaking out, I provide the keys. If you're looking for answers, whether it's about mental health, media sovereignty, or spiritual warfare, I have curated thousands of free resources for you. The best way to find them is to use our custom search engine called The Archives, built right into my platform. Type in your struggle and let the library serve you. And for those of you who are done consuming and you're ready to start creating, if you want to build a brand that is cancellation proof and a legacy that outlives you, I invite you to work with me. As the omnimedia architect, I help visionaries weaponize their story to serve the world. You can find all the details at joshuatberglan.com. But today we're looking at the face of the future. We are speaking with a young man who isn't waiting for permission to change the world. He looked at his city, saw the cracks, and decided to fill them not with concrete, but with code, compassion, and a whole new paradigm. My guest today is 23 years old. In the political world, they call that inexperienced. In the real world, we call that untainted. He is the native son of Tampa, Florida, a city he has watched grow and struggle his entire life. He started as a creator, building a massive audience online as silently CEO, and founding the professional esports team Dilemma Esports. He knows how to build communities in the digital age. But when tragedy struck, when he lost his mother to lupus and saw firsthand how the systems failed her, he didn't just grieve, he mobilized. He is running for mayor of Tampa in 2027 with a platform that reads like a blueprint for a smart city with heart. He calls it Building the Tampa of Tomorrow Today. He is fighting for access over authority, people over portfolios, mobility over mayhem, safety over sound bites, even though those are really great sound bites. He won't use AI to fix traffic, tax vacant luxury condos to house the poor, and turn city government into an app on your phone. He is facing an uphill battle against the political machine, but he has the one thing the machine fears most, a vision that actually makes sense to the people. He was named one of the top 25 entrepreneurs under 25 by the Tampa Bay Times and most influential CEO of the year. Now he wants to be the CEO of his city. Ladies and gentlemen, however else you identify, please help me welcome the candidate who is redefining what leadership looks like, Mr. Alan Henderson. Alan?
Wow.
World's Mayor Experience. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing so well, and thank you for such a thoughtful introduction. How are you?
I am excited to interview you for sure. I love your vision. It is disruptive in every sense of the word. It's shocking to read what you're about and what you stand for, not from a place of offense, but of inspiration. because it takes guts to do what you do and to do what you're trying to do and doing what you will do. I'm inspired by you, and I feel absolutely honored to have you here today.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. And believe me, the pleasure is all mine. I'm really excited.
Well, Alan, before we talk about AI traffic lights and affordable housing, I have to ask you the question that sets the entire frequency for this broadcast. What are you grateful for today and why?
That's a good question. I'd say lately, I've been extremely grateful for opportunities like this one and for a city that has been open to giving me the space to put my ideas out there, because I really do care about how we grow and how we make progress for the people who live here. And so, coming out of kind of nowhere without a massive political background, but a background that I think is respectable and competitive in this race, I just feel blessed that age hasn't been an inhibiting factor, race hasn't been an inhibiting factor to people taking my ideas seriously. And I really do appreciate that.
Well, they're great ideas. They should absolutely be taken seriously. Now, you've built an empire in esports with Dilemma Esports. Gamers are problem solvers. They optimize, they strategize, and they hate lag. How does the gamer mindset translate to running a city? Is city government just a massive, buggy operating system that needs a patch?
It can definitely feel that way sometimes. Notably, I'm actually a pretty bad gamer myself, but I fell in love with the business side of esports pretty early. I liken esports a lot to politics, actually, in that, part of it, you have a brand or a narrative that you're trying to support, but then also that you have so many different interests that you're trying to weigh at the same time. The players have a certain standard they want to keep and perform to. Coaches have responsibilities, marketers on the team, and then not aside from the actual business of it all, managing the budgets, travel logistics, etc. And so I realized a lot of those skills carried over pretty well with running a campaign, in that you're not just trying to, get your name out there and reach more people, but you're also trying to tell a compelling story, a compelling narrative, with the hope that people buy into it and they want to support you and they want to see the underdog win.
I dig it. Now, you lost your mother to lupus in 2022.
Yeah.
You've said that experience showed you how local systems fail people. Can you take us back to that time? What specifically did you see in the healthcare or even the city infrastructure that made you say, this is broken and I have to do something about it?
Yeah. Losing mom was something that was really tough on me and my family. And it sort of required me, I was her oldest son, to kind of step up and grow up pretty quickly. I think the major takeaway that I have from that whole experience was just really feeling powerless, I suppose, against a system that is just way bigger than you, powerless against things that are out of your control. And knowing that you have all the opportunities, to fix it and to want things to be better, but that you can't always do that. You can't always get it done. And so in my life, it looked a lot like having to step up and taking over, bills and mortgages, and, they had multiple properties, hospital networks and insurance and disability attorneys, and a whole world that I think at like 19, I got confronted with pretty quick. But it gave me skills that I carry to this day that I'm still trying to define and develop. It gave me a sense of resilience, and just this drive that it gave me, I would say, ultimately the ability to recognize that there are a lot of people who feel powerless against things that are out of their control. And our city government doesn't have to be one of them. And so I want to return Tampa back to its people, to put government back in their hands, so it's less of an obstacle and more of an asset in their lives, and helping them achieve their dreams. And so that's what's been driving me. That's what's been fueling me this entire campaign. And I'm hoping to build something that Mom can be proud of, and the city as well.
You're 23. The establishment.
I have to know. I actually turned 25 just about 3 days ago. Yeah, just about. Just so it's clear.
My apologies.
No worries.
I'm so sorry that I did not catch that. I'm sorry. Well, you're 25.
Yes, sir.
the establishment is going to use. I'm actually now really happy that you're not 23 because they're going to use being 25 against you too. Yeah, so they're going to say you're too young to understand how the world really works. What is your rebuttal? What does a 25-year-old see that a 60-year-old career politician is blind to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say a lot of my age is rooted in sort of seeing opportunities, where other people see problems and challenges. I'm really motivated by this type of work. I live and eat and breathe the complexity of it all, and I care about the results. I took an internship at McKinsey, and one of the sort of ideas that they tried to drive home is this idea of getting rid of an expert mentality. Basically, you can sum it up as saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're probably in the wrong room, right? And this idea that if you're doing things a certain type of way, or you've been doing them a certain type of way, that automatically is the best way to do it. And so being able to not have any type of previous agenda, prerequisite, standards that I'm trying to force on, our city, I think has given me the space to really just listen to what the residents want, listen to their concerns, and try to translate it into policy that actually gets things done. And I think that when I look at the mayor's role, I kind of think about it oftentimes as like, too young for what? Like, I mean, a lot of the actual role is, you're managing relationships with stakeholders, you're pulling together people to take ideas off of paper. And in so many ways, the mayor's role ends up being less the specialist and more of the generalist, right? And so I say it as, you got to know a little bit about a lot of things, but if you do, and you're willing to listen to the experts around you, and above all, the residents' experience and their concerns, then I can absolutely do the job. And I think we're prepared to do that on day one.
A mayor should be the ultimate facilitator. It's the ability to see people in their areas of greatness and then position them in a collaborative way so they can go on and solve some of the world's or cities or communities' biggest problems.
Absolutely.
And so you're right, being a generalist, you can't, if you're a specialist or an expert, you're probably not going to have that kind of vision. A generalist at least gives you the ability of, all the different roles. So then it helps you know who to place in those roles. You still need to know how to use them or do them. It's like with me. I know every form of media from idea to distribution and monetization. Every metaverse, whether it's audio, video, print, you name it, metaverse, VR. I know idea to monetization, every bit of it. But I'm a generalist. There's far better editors than me. There's far better book publishers than me. There's better everything in media than me. Sure. But when it comes to understanding every role and how to use it strategically, there's no one better in the world than me. That's why I've written the blueprints I've written. It's why I get to do what I get to do. But I'm a generalist. I'm not an expert. So I really love how you answered that question so much.
I appreciate it.
Now, you want to create CitySync, which I think is a brilliant idea, A digital hub for everything from potholes to voting records. This sounds amazing, but government tech is notoriously awful. How do you ensure this doesn't become another failed, expensive website? How do you bring Silicon Valley efficiency to City Hall?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think a lot of my sort of background adjacency to the tech world is really helpful in this because I kind of know what KPIs to aim for and how to not get scammed, right? I think is a big deal. And it kind of also goes back to, the opportunity and being a younger candidate. This is a technology that we use every single day. And I know like the back of my hand in so many ways. And so on top of that, we have the benefit of hindsight, looking at other cities who have launched projects that couldn't scale or maybe ran deficits and just didn't actually meet the end goals of the community. But the way I see it is it's pretty clear technology, artificial intelligence, data in general is the way certainly our country, if not the world, is moving. And I don't think Tampa has to be sort of complicit and waiting for those opportunities when they're already here today. And so our idea for CitySync is to take some of the data we are presumably already collecting, but just activate it and make it resident facing in a way so that the people can use it and it's not siloed in individual departments. And so on the simple level, it's doing things like transcript analysis from city council meetings so we can know what they're working on at one given time, but also internally having transcripts for every single department meeting so we can sync them up and find opportunities and bottlenecks. I also think of the convenience side for residents. If you can track your Uber Eats order, right, maybe you should be able to see when the next garbage truck is coming to pick up your can or where the buses are on a schedule. And so a lot of this tech already exists and performs really well. And it's just about, can we position it in a way so it's actually useful to the population? And then as far as making sure it doesn't, we don't scale anything that doesn't work, kind of a core philosophy of mine that's served me pretty well is basically twofold. One, under promise and over deliver, right? That usually ends up pretty good. And two, don't put all of your eggs in one basket, right? And so I want to run Tampa not like a corporate bureaucracy, but like a startup. And part of what that means for me is continuously trying to prove value. And so if the model or the idea we have initially, doesn't work, it doesn't meet the performance, metrics that we're aiming for, then I'm not someone that's going to sit on it and just keep throwing money at it. We're going to fix it and we're going to get it to a place where it works, or we'll pivot to a different idea. But the goal, I think, is ultimately just to connect the residents with information we should already be collecting and just present it in a more unified, holistic way.
Going back to something you were talking about with transcribing meetings, AI scares a lot of people. A lot of people are scared of it. They're scared of the changes. They're scared of it getting out of control, scared of it becoming sentient. Maybe they've been reading too much, headlines from conspiracy theories from social media. Maybe they're just completely uninformed. I don't know what it is, but the fact is there's a large group of people that are scared of AI or pushing back against the advances of AI. They think of surveillance. How do you use AI to empower the citizens of your community rather than monitor them? Where do we draw the line with privacy?
That is a great question. And I think a lot of the people who are afraid of this type of technology, their intuition is correct. I mean, it goes back to that saying, great power comes great responsibility. And this is indeed a great power. And we're already seeing it being leveraged in useful ways and in ways that are of disservice to the public, like creating misinformation at the highest levels of government. And so they are right to be concerned about where this tech can go. And I think that partially how you mitigate it, and it goes back to why it's useful to have someone who knows this tech and this position is because you can also be explicit about the risks and align your city in a way to where you're actively trying to avoid them. You know, states like California have really strict data laws because a lot of their residents, you know, some of them are high net worth individuals, celebrities, and so, you know, companies can't even get a lot of their residents' data. And Tampa, I feel like also should be held to a pretty good standard to where we're protecting the people who live here, protecting their information. And so I actually just published this today, a list of some of the day one executive orders I would sign. And one of them is a moratorium on all public surveillance. Basically, we're seeing cities all across the country adopting surveillance tech where it's doing like facial scanning IDs and data fusion, you know, scraping your social media and trying to aggregate as much information they can find about you in order to put together public profiles, which I think is just a bit far and I think probably qualifies as government overreach. And so setting the standards for not necessarily banning all this technology outright forever, but if you are going to incorporate it, the public needs to be made aware. It can't be something that's done without full transparency on the impacts of the algorithm. You know, you need public hearings. You want the people to be involved. And then just being explicit about what the risks are, what the potential gains are. And then if the community supports it, you can bring this technology in. But otherwise, I think there should be some really strict guardrails to keep people safe.
Yeah, that's been a lot of problem. It's a huge problem with a lot of the technological advances we have. We're not warned, even for that matter, supplements or medicine. You know, we're not told to weigh after the fact that, oh, well, you know, there's a side effect.
Right.
I have a personal side effects of the frequencies and how they affect me. And, you know, I knew the warnings of 5G, and of course, I know what 6G is going to be, and we won't go diving into that right now. But you know, they didn't really make the information was put out publicly. However, people in power and positions of authority kind of poo-pooed that and said, oh no, that's, even though it was part of a Senate hearing, or like, no, that's fake. You know, that's not real. You don't need to worry. Everything's safe. And now the government's being forced to do real studies to see how these frequencies are affecting the human body. And that's one thing, you know, so we need radical transparency, because at this point, you know, we have a lot of people that can hide on. I'm about to go on a sermon. I'm not meaning to do this.
No, please.
I'm all for radical transparency in every sense of the word. And people are like, oh, but privacy. But here's the thing. We haven't really had privacy in a really long time, because here, and proof of that is no one, maybe 0.002% of the people on the planet actually read the terms of service before they click sign in.
That's right. For sure.
And so, like, we have the information told to us, but we have to do our part to educate and inform and prepare ourselves. The blueprint for the future of how to succeed in the future world was given to us over 20 years ago. And yet we have 80% of the world not prepared for the changes coming. And that came directly from the UN. 80% of the world is not ready for the world to come. And so we at this point, we're getting in a situation where, to bridge this gap, to bring people together, we need radical transparency in every sense of the word, because the truth may hurt, it may break people in half, but ultimately that's where the healing can begin. That's where trust can be restored. That's where real, honest conversations can take place, which are required when you're trying to bring a community back together. So I'm all for radical transparency. And I used to be one of those people that had a bunch of secrets that was like, I need a clone to hide behind, and I need all the firewalls and everything. Now, like, I'm all for transparency, just from the simple fact of it's freedom for me, but also I would like to know how to navigate this new world in a way that navigate it safely and also be educated of the risk, the potential risk, and have honest conversations around that so we can bring real solutions. Because AI has the truth is AI has an opportunity to level the playing field for underserved communities all over the world. It has an opportunity to revolutionize healthcare in the sense of, you may have a world-renowned surgeon that's in Germany, but they're trying to talk to somebody in Nigeria, and there's a dialect and a language issue, but this one doctor just so happens to be the one that can cure this person in Nigeria or Ghana or Uganda or another part of the world. But because of the language barrier, because of the way things have been, that's almost impossible. AI can bridge that gap. People can have where there's been accessibility issues and gatekeepers. AI can eliminate that. So there's so many things to celebrate with AI, but we also need to have real conversations about the potential risk.
Yeah, I think that was very well put, and I couldn't agree more. A big part of our platform is, and kind of to your point, not just making these things transparent, but really leaning into making them accessible for who we want to serve. And for us, that's the residents. That's who the end user is. And governments use this as a tool all the time. Just like you said with the terms and conditions, governments operate the same way. And they'll try to legalize their way into hiding things or release obscure reports. But the way I see it is, should the people of Tampa elect me to be their next mayor,
Yes.
I think that, one, it'll come with the permission slip to do things. I think ultimately what they want to see is progress. And two, it'll also be with the acknowledgement that as a young candidate, we can't be allergic to feedback. We can't be allergic to transparency. And we want the public's opinion. We want them to contribute to, letting us know how we're doing, so we can improve or know what we're doing well already. And so making sure that the information isn't just public, but also, resident friendly, accessible, loads quickly on their phones. It's in a plain English language, and not obscured by, distractions is also really important to me.
I love it. Now, when I learned a little bit about your platform, this next question, it reminded me of Miami and how a lot of the condos sit empty because it's somebody's third or fourth home, and sometimes it just sits there for years and no one's there. And there's reasons for that. I won't go into that. I won't go down that path right now, but you're proposing a vacancy tax on long-term empty investor-owned units. That is a bold move against the real estate lobby. Why should an investor be penalized for keeping their property empty? Is housing a human right or an asset class?
That is a really good question. I believe housing is a human right. I think that when you're talking about a $2 billion budget like the one the city manages, and a resident pool of a little under around 400,000 people, there's really no excuse for someone who's really trying to serve the public to have people living on the streets. It's not a sign of a good city. It's not a sign of decency, in control of that budget. And so I think part of what we, as future city leaders or current city leaders, we have an obligation to do everything we can to sort of alleviate that concern. And the vacancy tax is modest. I don't think, and I've spoken with developers about it. It's in the range of 1% to 3%, and we'll defer to expertise on the final numbers. But the truth of the situation is, Tampa sort of sits in a position where a lot of other cities sit, where it's your basic sort of supply side economic issue, where the amount of housing you have, the amount of housing stock you have available, isn't being built fast enough to meet the demand of the people who want it. And so when you have these people, these speculative buyers, a lot of times they're out of state companies who are hoarding. They're seeing the property growth in our city and they see opportunities here, but perhaps they don't want to cash in on it today. And so what they'll do is they'll buy it, sit on it for decades sometimes. And our numbers show somewhere close to 13% of the city is just, out of state companies owning these properties and doing nothing with it. And I don't think it's much of a penalty to say, okay, sure, you can do it. But if you're going to hoard housing during a housing crisis, you probably should have to pay just a little bit for that advantage. And so I think it's fair. And all of those dollars will be spent on building more places for people to live so people aren't on the streets. And I think that's just a fair proposition given the economic realities we find ourselves in today.
Gosh, I could spend an hour on this discussion alone just because I know who buys a lot of those houses.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm going to stop. All right. So you want a city-backed legal tool and enforcement blitz on, let me start over. You want a city-backed legal tool and enforcement blitz on slumlords. In many cities, slumlords are politically connected. Are you ready for the blowback? How do you protect the tenants who might face retaliation if they report their landlord?
Absolutely. And it's a major concern of mine. It just goes back to that idea of being powerless against these big systems. I believe that housing is a right. I believe that people should have a place to live. And I also believe the terms and conditions of that relationship should be explicit. And so when you have, one half of the agreement that's not holding up their end of the deal, there are resources to being able to, remedy that should be forward. It should be accessible. And part of how these slumlords can avoid not having to deal with these, challenges, their tenants, stepping forward, is to just not be slumlords in the first place, right? So if people are concerned about, being inconvenienced by this policy change, it's probably more of an indicator that they're not doing the things they should be doing already. And all we want to do is, okay, if you run an organization, 4,000 employees, and some of the best, city attorneys and legal minds in the city, what kind of work are they doing? There should at least be a suite of tools for residents to report concerns happening in their neighborhoods, and have some third party be able to step in and try to resolve them as amicably as possible.
Now, you mentioned modular housing under $700 a month. People hear modular and they think trailer park. Paint the picture of what modern, dignified modular housing looks like. Can it really solve the supply crisis?
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of modularism, mostly just for the idea that, I know it's not going to be for everybody. And I don't think it's intended to, but it is an option that when your challenge is you can't build the houses fast enough, when you do build them, they're not cheap enough to be affordable, and that you need them also to be resilient to storms, because we get a lot of hurricanes here in Tampa. When those are the top three issues driving up what we hear is the largest concern to residents, you look at modularism as a solution, and these are homes that people can live in, that keeps them off the streets, that are built faster, that do cost less to install, where you're activating the local workforces. There's thousands of developers in Florida that are already building these facilities, that are already making them storm-proof. And the real question is, why is Tampa cut off from just the opportunity to have them? I'm not advocating for everybody to sell their home and move into a modular house, but certainly for the people who need it, right? The option should be available to them. And there's one of the things I can respect about our state is that they have the broader policy framework available to activate these types of housing solutions very quickly. We have what we call the Live Local Act here, which is if you're building homes to a certain affordability standard, you can bypass permitting, bypass council approvals, and just get straight to work. And it's pretty cool because modular homes pretty often fit this standard. And I just think that the growing list of people who need homes in Tampa right now is a little under 30,000, is only expected to keep growing. And if we can make a dent and building the supply faster, we absolutely should take that opportunity.
Unbelievable. You talk about micro transit shuttles for the last mile. This is often where public transit fails, getting from the bus stop to the front door. How do you make these shuttles reliable enough that people actually trust them to get to work on time?
That's a good question. And our goal with microtransit is to basically supplement the main bus system and so to reduce some of the strain on it and just to start thinking about what are the most repetitive routes that people take in Tampa. So we can give them an option that's a little bit more convenient. It's in addition to other modality upgrades that we want to make. Like I also want to see people, do more ride shares, because we have this program we call Dash that we can expand. Right now, it's only in downtown. We can expand it citywide, and people can get much cheaper Ubers. Or adding bike locks to the bus stations, because if you ride your bike to a bus stop and you want to leave it there so you can take the bus to somewhere else, you probably want it to be safe. Just simple upgrades like this that I think working together will make options other than driving just a little bit more compelling. And so I think micro shuttles fit into that agenda pretty well. We would pilot it neighborhood level, pilot it small before we scale it, but I can already see things like bringing people from a super large parking garage we have to like Emily, or now they call it the Benchmark, but to our arena downtown, or college students from USF going back and forth into the city core. Just routine trips like this, that if we can get a predictable, reliable, safe, attractive route going, I have a feeling that a lot of residents will benefit from that type of system being created.
This could be just me, but I don't like to drive. I mean, I get, hey, it's freedom and you can just hop in your car and go whenever you want. Right. But like, I lived in LA for a long time, and I've lived in South Florida. I've lived in a lot of different places. Sitting in traffic sucks. Oh, yeah. I like the option of being able to walk. I lived in downtown Minneapolis. I would know what it's like to walk downtown when it's negative 20 outside. Okay. It's not that awful. It's really not, and then one of my favorite things ever to do in bigger cities, LA specifically, ride sharing is fun. When you share an Uber and you never know who you're going to meet. Right. I like people, although people physically cause me pain now, but I'm going to heal eventually. That said, I like being around people. I like being in community. I like walking and seeing people and the energy of a bustling city that uses local transport or public transportation. I like that. I'm not saying that's for everybody, and having a car is also awesome. I'm not saying it's not, but having the option to be able to use public transportation in the city, it creates so many cool experiences, and it keeps you connected to the people around you. You get in your car, you drive an hour, you do your commute, whatever it is, like you're isolated from the rest of the world. When that happens, unless if you're texting on your phone, which I don't recommend, but I enjoy that. And a lot of people are very resistant to that change alone. And I don't know, how do you make, and this is not a planned question, but like, how do you get people to wrap their arms around sharing transportation, essentially, whether it's sharing a car, having, one of the things that people predict will happen here in the near future is that no one will really own a car, but you'll be able to hop in and out of Teslas in these smart cities that are going to be built all over the world, and you have that car, you don't really own it, but you have the right to use it. How do you get people to wrap their head around that are all about they complain about their car payment, and they complain about the gas prices, and they complain about how much it costs to fix a windshield, but they don't want to give up their car. Like,
Sure.
what do you say to them? Like, how do you bridge that gap?
For sure. I mean, I think, to be honest, they have a pretty, thoughtful point.
Yeah.
I also agree. I think that the human connection of it is important. And beyond that, I see it personally as an opportunity for our dollars to do double duty. And that one, we're improving transportation and adding more options. But two, that you're also empowering the community to get back. And, like Dash in Tampa operates kind of like Uber. You book a ride on the app and a driver will come and pick you up. And because you don't have the sort of financial constraints as Uber, you're not running a business. It needs to be sustainable, but it doesn't need to be, insanely profitable, right? Because you don't have that middleman incentive of the shareholders, it allows you to take government dollars and inject the capital back into the community. And so you're seeing sort of a double gain there, where people who need opportunities for work get it, and people who need to get to and from their work also get it. And so I think that the way to bridge the gap is to make these other modality options just a little bit more compelling, right? Despite all the deficits that people have with their cars and all the challenges that come with it, at least in our city, it's still probably the most reliable option to get around. And it's in that you just have it available whenever you want. The buses here run slow. Biking isn't always safe because there's not a lot of protected lanes. And so I can't say I blame them for wanting to stick to their car, but that is the opportunity we have, which is how can you make other options just as attractive as driving, if not more attractive? And I think that if we can save them money, if we can get them there faster, and we can make it safer, people will come around to it slowly but surely and take more advantage of it.
Yeah, I think so too. Because it's really not as bad as people make it out to be. It's not.
Not even close. Not even close.
Now, you want to invest in wellness, not just reaction. You talk about mental health response teams and youth programs. Critics will say, we need more cops, not therapists. What is the data that proves prevention is better than punishment?
That is a great question. Well, for one, I also do believe in hiring more police because I do ultimately want the city to be safe. But also, when you bring on more police officers, you have to also think about how you can elevate the standard of engagement that they bring to the city. Tampa PD's explicit mission is to build trust with its community. And I'll be honest, lately, I feel like they've been sort of neglecting it, or at least deviating from it in some of the recent decisions they've been making. And so, part of how you build trust is by knowing the appropriate response for a particular circumstance and making sure that you have the resources available to address it, thoughtfully, to address it effectively, more importantly. And so, punishing crime is great, but what's even better than that is making sure there's no crime that happened in the first place. And so being proactive in preventing it by understanding who are the most likely offenders. And in our city, it's typically young people, right? And thinking about, okay, well, what are the conditions that create this type of crime? Why do kids get involved in theft? Why do kids feel inclined to assault people? And if you can, leverage that information correctly, you can put in place incentive structures that sort of stop people from wanting to engage in those behaviors in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just, I just think that's the responsibility and opportunity that we have, is to be preventing, these crime patterns, to measure it very carefully and do everything we can to prevent more victims being created.
It your answer reminds me, and this is probably a strange example, but I was watching this show called Mind Hunters on Netflix, and it's based in the 70s. This is right before the term serial killer was an actual term.
See,
But the way the FBI went about their investigations and the way that they profiled or tried to solve crimes, that's right when it evolved, because the nature of crime changed. And this is again a wild example, but as times change, people change. As their environments change, we have different nuances. Like dissociative conditions are more common than ever. Neurodivergency is more common than ever, or at least it's recognized. And so now that we are aware of these things, the way that we communicate, the way that those different brains understand and think and communicate are different. So things are changing, and we have to modify the way that we go about things. And I'm all for justice, but restorative justice matters too. Like, I'm somebody at one point in my life that should have been thrown underneath the prison, if not set on fire and burned under the prison. But I had an opportunity to rehabilitate my life and to do something with it. When the odds were stacked against me to do so, I've been able to do it. And so I believe in, again, restorative justice. I believe in providing proper health care, but part of the thing that fuels my very mission initially, because I'm blessed to work with a lot of different communities around the world that fall into the underserved category. But for me, it originally started with troubled youth, because I was that troubled kid that was afraid to tell the truth, and I was afraid to talk about the things that were happening to me. And therefore, the consequences of keeping that silent and lying for my perpetrators and lying for my abusers and then lying just to protect my own secrets, like the damage that caused and the ripple effect. It wasn't just the people that I hurt and affected. Well, the way that I hurt and affected them spiraled into the people that were in their life that maybe I didn't even know. And they create these ripple effects. And so part of my passion in working with the youth is showing that there's an alternative to crime for human trafficking victims, sex trafficking victims, ex-convicts, to show them that there's an actual better way. Like, you don't have to settle for Walmart greeter. You don't have to go back to the devil because we know the devil we know is better than the one we don't know. And no one, when you try to turn your life around and you try to turn away from addiction or whatever your pain is, like, it's tough. It's a tough road, and you can't see that there's actually truly a way out. You do most of it in faith. But when you've never had an example of what success looks like, that becomes even harder. So changing our mindset and bringing counselors and different types of therapists, and even just changing the way that we work with kids, it matters. We have to evolve, because we're dealing with different problems now. Kids didn't have access to pornography the way they do now. When I was growing up, it was much more difficult to find a Playboy. Now you can find some of the filthiest, most rotten things ever that no person should see, regardless of your perversion. It's all right there on your phone, and sometimes it pops up, and so there's different things, there's different monsters to fight, there's different battles to fight, so we have to evolve. So one of the things I want to ask you, and I'm all for what you talk about with what you just said with the police and therapists, but one of the things that I love, because this is a major source of trauma in inner cities and underserved communities, is the behavior of police. And you are proposing to use AI to flag both misconduct and commendable behavior in the police force. Police unions are powerful. I mean, they're a mafia, essentially. They're that powerful. How do you get them on board with this level of transparency? How do you build trust between the community and the badge?
that is an incredible question. And let me start by saying I think that we share that commitment to wanting to work with underserved communities, and especially kids, to see them do better and to give them all the opportunities available for them to live a fulfilling life. And so I empathize with that a lot. Police accountability is incredibly important if your mission is going to be to build trust. And right now, I'll give them credit. Tampa does currently have the tool suite in place in order to activate some of the proposals that I'm running on. So, for example, they use what they call these Axon body cams, and I don't mean to be so technical, but this is what they're using. They use these Axon body cams that are already providing real-time artificial intelligence analysis of active crime scenes. It has an earpiece connected, so the officers could ask policy questions about the law, and it's transcribing the conversation. It has the background call details, and so it's basically giving them a blueprint for how to do things correctly. All I want to do is flag, well, when they deviate from that blueprint, if we have all the tools in place to recognize it, we should at least talk about it, right? And so Tampa PD should know that I'm going to have their back. We're going to build the trust with the community together. But it means holding each other accountable to a high standard. And it starts from the police chief down. And so the next mayor will have more than likely an opportunity to select a new police chief. And I want that process to be public. I want the chief to be accountable to the people. And I want him or her to have the shared commitment of wanting to improve officer standards and officer quality and community engagement. And so this is modern tech that enables it. I'm willing to negotiate with the police unions. They should share the same goals, presumably, as we do. So, there are ways to get there without, an iron fist. But absolutely, this tech is available. Cities are already using it. And I don't think Tampa should be limited from those opportunities.
One of the things that's really sticking out about you to me is that I don't know your political party. Your answers are so common sense. They're an understanding of the world in reality. I mean, sure, you're proposing some very radical changes, but these changes are not so radical when you understand the technology that is not only already implemented that we have access to, but the technology that's coming. So your ideas are very practical for the new world. Very modern, fresh ideas. Love them. They're practical because, again, your awareness of technology and AI definitely helps you have this vision. But the part that I love the most, you're not trying to kick out the police. You're not trying to go to one extreme or the other. You are building a bridge between multiple political parties. Like I probably am closer to a technocrat than I am anything, which I'm not really politically inclined, but you've got a nice balance of what some would call a liberal. You have some very conservative approaches too, and you have some technocratic views too, but they all come together in this wonderfully complementary, common sense approach to solving problems. I dig it. And I don't know if this is even a real question, but where did your political ideology come from?
That's a good question, actually. And I appreciate you saying that. I think a lot of it just came from personal experiences and conversations I've had with residents. I've always been sort of a systems thinker, and I have a proclivity to lean more into solutions than I do just, trying to rationalize the problem. And so, when I think about these changes, it's funny that you said it's radical, some of them, because I often think about it as like, it would be radical to not do these things,
I agree.
Given the landscape, right? And so, I ultimately just want to be a really thoughtful steward of what we would inherit. And I think that means putting my personal beliefs aside, not using the office to be all about me, right? But focus on the collective, trying to hone in on policies that we can agree on. I think we just come back from years and years of so much divisiveness and trying to pull people apart, that if you had a candidate that was just trying to be thoughtful about what you say, thoughtful about how your words can impact others, and trying to be explicit about wanting to find consensus and being a bridge builder, That would be a useful thing to have in 2027.
I dig it. I'm called the world's mayor, and if I gave you the power to enact one global law regarding smart cities, a standard every city on earth had to meet, that you were going to model out of Tampa, what would that law be?
That is a very great question. I want to think about for a bit. I think almost certainly it would have something to do with civil liberties and data protection. Just establishing the ethical guardrails for this technology. So whatever the impacts of it are, it's not happening in the dark. I really think there are a lot of opportunities for technology to scale efficiency and to create meaningful progress and meaningful change in the lives of residents. But I know that technology isn't for everybody. My parents, my dad in particular, isn't a big, tech guy, right? They've always thought it's kind of big brother looking over everything. And I can't say I blame them. We're coming from two different generations. And so whether or not cities decide to lean into the tech opportunities will be up to the residents to choose. But if they do, I think it should be really, really clear what the rules of engagement are, so that there are no surprises and nobody's being taken advantage of.
Beautiful. Now, there's a 19-year-old listening right now who is angry at the world, but feels powerless. They think voting doesn't matter. What do you say to them to get them to join #Team Tampa?
Ooh, okay. I would tell them, look, I get it. I get it. Believe me. When you look at the way the world is trending, when you look at the decisions people are making, the landscape that by the time they're in their 30s, they'll have to deal with. I can understand why they would be disenchanted with politics, disenchanted with their community, and get disenchanted with getting involved. But at the end of the day, people, generations well before me, have fought very, very hard for their right to participate, their freedom of speech, and their ability to be involved. And the one thing that we know about rights is that if you don't use them, you will lose them. And if there was ever an opportunity to test the system, ever an opportunity to stand up for yourself, to advocate for what you believe in, now is the time to do it, because things aren't anticipated to get easier. Things aren't anticipated to get better unless the people watching this, the people who believe in this type of work, unless they decide to do the work necessary, it means to bring about that kind of change. And so I would encourage them to not lose faith, to keep paying attention, and to go out and be decisive and vote for the people who are saying the things that you think will improve your life, and hold on to that spirit, because it'll help them.
I dig it. We live in a very noisy world. If you could leave the audience with one raw, unfiltered truth about the state of our cities, something the current politicians are afraid to say, what is it?
Okay. Well, I think a real truth that people don't readily speak about is the lack of expertise that exists in our broader government. And I'm not talking about the specialists, but I am talking about the egos that run a lot of municipalities, that are afraid to be wrong, that are afraid to get feedback, that are afraid to challenge traditional thinking, or not push the status quo for whatever reasons. And it's so prevalent. I can't tell you the amount of times where you have so many missed opportunities because people are talking past each other, because politics has crept into what should be kind of a routine civil work that people should agree on. If everybody has the goals of fixing all the potholes or roads in their city, right? If that's a shared benefit that the people have, you would imagine that there wouldn't be so many roadblocks to actually getting it done. But when you look in with a magnifying glass at some of these, things that are inhibiting progress, it oftentimes comes down to people. It oftentimes comes down to, special interests, personal interests that exceed what should be the primary interest, which is serving the residents. And so I think that what would serve the public a lot of good going forward is to really start thinking about their elected officials on a personal level, and trying to find people who are authentic, right? Who maybe don't have ties to broader agendas or, super PAC money or, any of these things. And just looking at, maybe you don't need the politician who has 100 decades in government, trying to frame that as a benefit. When you have a teacher, when you have someone who's lived in the trenches, who's lived in and seen the community's gains and its deficits up close in person, I think that's the kind of person that you want to have advocating on your behalf going forward.
Oh, so good. So good. Henderson for Tampa.org, everybody. If you're in Tampa, vote for future Mayor Henderson here. I have chills. I am so I almost want to move to Tampa just so I can vote for you.
Come on there. But I will say it's packed. It's packed. You're more than invited.
I love Florida. I think my next stop is Africa, but that's another conversation. Now, paint a picture for us, Alan. It's 2030.
Okay.
You are 3 years into your term. The Tampa of tomorrow is here. What does a Tuesday morning look like for a single mother living in your city? How is her life different?
That's a good question. That's a great question. I think if you're a single mom in Tampa in the year 2030, I want my administration to be defined by opportunities and access. So one, if you need childcare on the weekends, part of our proposals is to leverage existing city facilities that we have today and build a network of caretakers and the relationships and the safety protocols so that if you want to go drop your kid off for the weekend and take time for yourself, you can trust that you have that opportunity available and it'll be safe and it'll be effective. If you need to get around Tampa and you don't have the ability to drive, I want you to be able to, request on your phone a ride pickup, right? Or to be able to check where the buses are on the next schedule, and know that somebody is going to be there to come pick you up or to bring you to your work or to fill in that mobility gap problem that you have, because we've spent those 3 years working on improving, the efficiency gains there. I want that if an emergency happens and you have to call 911, I want them to have record-breaking response times, like response times we could be proud of, so that you don't have to worry about safety concerns. Or if an ambulance shows up, it's not going to break down in your driveway. I qualify all of these changes as simple but significant, and they're changes that take Tampa away from not just being a great place to be, but a really incredible place to live, an incredible place to build your families, to pursue the full extent of your dreams, to have a kid, to go build great relationships, to do everything that you want to, within the scope of the law, to live a fulfilling life. And I ask people if that's a vision that you share with me, then I would hope you vote for me. I would hope you at least check out our proposals and see if they resonate, because I think that if we can scale opportunities like this, we'll help a lot of people.
I dig it. And it would be great to see Baker Mayfield bring a Super Bowl to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Absolutely. Let's do it again.
Big Baker fan. All right. Mr. Henderson, I'm rooting for you in every sense of the word. I can't wait to follow your journey, to see what you do over the next few years, what you do. I mean, I admire your vision. I admire the courage that it takes to even run for office. It's not like you're running for high school class president. I mean, you're running for freaking mayor of a major city,
Sure.
but yet you're bringing ideas that can be duplicated to any city and work. And I have just a ton of respect for you. I'd like to give you the final word, meaning I'm done talking after this. I would like for you to plug your website, social media, anything that you want to plug. But then if there's anything on your heart to share, anything at all, share it. The floor is yours.
Wow. Well, for starters, thank you again so much for this space, this opportunity, and thank you for the work you're doing as well to help reach communities all across the country and to highlight people who presumably share the vision we both have for a better country to live in. I'm someone who was born in Tampa, and I often qualify my life as being fortunate enough to see both sides of our city. I've seen all the great things that come with success here, you know, the happy hours and the rooftop bars and the sunsets that are amazing. And I get it. And I know our city is brochure ready. It's very marketable and it's a great place to be. But I've also seen up close the very real challenges that a lot of residents face that keep them from being able to experience that half of the city. And I know that the way we bridge that gap is not by continuing to elect the same politicians or continuing to institute the same policies that put us here in the first place. I believe in practical, well-researched, well-thought-out policy positions that I can advocate for and that I'm willing to negotiate in public view. And I think that this is our opportunity now to decide what type of city are we going to be. Are we going to be the city that continues to invest in image, continues to just invest in downtown, continues to propagate wealth gaps and knowingly doing a disservice to the people? Or are we going to vote for a change? And I hope that if people are with me, that now is the time, not another decade, not another 2 terms from these repeat politicians, but now, 2027 is the time for us to elect different. I hope they will support my campaign at hendersonfortampa.org. I really believe in this work, and I appreciate people for following this journey.
Access over authority. That's our commitment to you. A blueprint for a better Tampa.